The Group of Eight was the name of a forum for the governments of a group of 8 leading industrialized countries that was originally formed by 6 leading industrialized countries and subsequently extended with 2 additional members. Russia, which was invited to join as the last member, was excluded from the forum by the other members on March 24, 2014, as a result of its involvement in the 2014 Crimea crisis in Ukraine. Thus the group now comprises 7 nations and will continue to meet as the G7 group of nations. The forum originated with a 1975 summit hosted by France that brought together representatives of 6 governments: France, West Germany, Italy, Japan, the United Kingdom, and the United States, thus leading to the name Group of 6 or G6. The summit became known as the Group of 7 or G7 the following year with the addition of Canada. The G7 is composed of the 7 wealthiest developed countries on Earth, and it remained active even during the period of the G8. Russia was added to the group from 1998 to 2014, which then became known as the G8. The European Union is represented within the G8 but cannot host or chair summits. The 40th summit became the first time the European Union able to host and chair a summit. G8 can refer to the member states in aggregate or to the annual summit meeting of the G8 heads of government. The former term, G6, is now frequently applied to the 6 most populous countries within the European Union. G8 ministers also meet throughout the year, such as the G7/8 finance ministers, G8 foreign ministers, or G8 environment ministers. Collectively, in 2012 the G8 nations comprised 50.1% of 2012 global nominal GDP and 40.9% of global GDP. Each calendar year the responsibility of hosting the G8 is rotated through the member states in the following order: France, United States, United Kingdom, Russia, Germany, Japan, Italy, and Canada. The holder of the presidency sets the agenda, hosts the summit for that year, and determines which ministerial meetings will take place. Both France and the United Kingdom have expressed a desire to expand the group to include 5 developing countries, referred to as the Outreach 5 or the Plus 5, Brazil, People's Republic of China, India, Mexico, and South Africa. These countries have participated as guests in meetings which are sometimes called G8+5. With the G20 major economies growing in stature since the 2008 Washington summit, world leaders from the group announced at their Pittsburgh summit on September 25, 2009, that the group would replace the G8 as the main economic council of wealthy nations. On March 24, 2014, the original G7 nations voted to effectively suspend Russia from the organization in response to the country's annexation of Crimea. However, it was made clear that the suspension was temporary. History. The concept of a forum for the world's major industrialized countries emerged prior to the 1973 oil crisis. On Sunday, March 25, 1973, Secretary of the Treasury George Shultz convened an informal gathering of finance ministers from West Germany, France, and Britain before an upcoming meeting in Washington, D.C. When running the idea past President Nixon, he noted that he would be out of town, and offered use of the White House. The meeting was subsequently held in the library on the ground floor. Taking their name from the setting, this original group of 4 became known as the Library Group. In mid-1973, at the World Bank-IMF meetings, Shultz proposed the addition of Japan to the original 4 nations, who agreed. The informal gathering of senior financial officials from the United States, the United Kingdom, West Germany, Japan, and France became known as the Group of 5. The year that followed was one of the most turbulent of the post-World War II era. The heads of state or government of the top 10 industrial nations fell due to illness or scandal. There were 2 elections in the UK, 3 chancellors of West Germany, 3 presidents of France, 3 prime ministers of Japan and Italy, 2 US presidents, and Prime Minister Trudeau of Canada was forced into an early election. Of the members of the Group of 5, all were new to the job with the exception of Prime Minister Trudeau. American Samoa, 1975 dawned. Schmidt and Giscard were now heads of government in their respective countries, and since they both spoke fluent English, it occurred to them that they, British Prime Minister Harold Wilson and US President Gerald Ford could get together in an informal retreat and discuss election results and the issues of the day. So, in the late spring, President Giscard invited the heads of government from West Germany, Italy, Japan, the United Kingdom and the United States to a summit in Centro de Rambouillet. The annual meeting of the six leaders was organized under a rotating presidency, forming the Group of Six. The following year, with Wilson out as Prime Minister of Britain, Schmidt and Ford felt an English speaker with more experience was needed, so Canada's Pierre Trudeau was invited to join the group and the group became the Group of Seven. The European Union is represented by the President of the European Commission and the leader of the country that holds the presidency of the Council of the European Union. The President of the European Commission has attended all meetings since first invited by the United Kingdom in 1977 and the Council President now also regularly attends. Following 1994's G7 summit in Naples, Russian officials held separate meetings with leaders of the G7 after the group summits. This informal arrangement was dubbed the Political Eight Euro, or, colloquially, the G7+1. At the invitation of Prime Minister of the United Kingdom Tony Blair and President of the United States Bill Clinton, President Boris Yeltsin was invited first as a guest observer, later as a full participant. It was seen as a way to encourage Yeltsin with his capitalist reforms. Russia formally joined the group in 1998, resulting in the Group of Eight, or G8. Food, a major focus of the G8 since 2009 has been the global supply of food. At the 2009 L'Aquila Summit, the G8's members promised to contribute $20 billion to the issue over 3 years. Since then, only 22% of the promised funds have been delivered. At the 2012 summit, President Barack Obama plans to ask G8 leaders to adopt a policy that would privatize global food investment. Crimean crisis and Russian suspension. On March 2, 2014, the remaining non-Russian G8 members, the European Union, and the European Commission suspended the planned G8 summit in the Russian city of Sochi and would instead meet as the G7 in Brussels, blaming Russia's role in the Crimean crisis. Following the suspension of the summit, on March 18 the French Minister of Foreign Affairs Laurent Fabius claimed that Russia was suspended from the G8. However, the German Chancellor Angela Merkel and French Foreign Ministry spokesman Romain Nadal clarified that Russia would remain a G8 member, and only the meeting would be suspended. While visiting Kiev, Ukraine on March 22, Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper stated that he supports expelling Russia from the G8 and expects to discuss the potential expulsion with other G7 leaders at an upcoming meeting in The Hague. On March 24, G7 leaders met formally in The Hague, without Russia being present, and voted to officially suspend Russia's membership in the G8. Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov stated earlier that day that the G8 was an informal organization and membership was optional for Russia. Structure and activities. By design, the G8 deliberately lacks an administrative structure like those for international organizations, such as the United Nations or the World Bank. The group does not have a permanent secretariat, or offices for its members. The presidency of the group rotates annually among member countries, with each new term beginning on January 1 of the year. The rotation order is, France, the United States, the United Kingdom, Russia, Germany, Japan, Italy, and Canada. The country holding the presidency is responsible for planning and hosting a series of ministerial-level meetings, leading up to a mid-year summit attended by the heads of government. The President of the European Commission participates as an equal in all summit events. The ministerial meetings bring together ministers responsible for various portfolios to discuss issues of mutual or global concern. The range of topics include health, law enforcement, labor, economic and social development, energy, environment, foreign affairs, justice and interior, terrorism, and trade. There are also a separate set of meetings known as the G8+5, created during the 2005 Gleneagles, Scotland Summit, that is attended by finance and energy ministers from all 8 member countries in addition to the 5 outreach countries, which are also known as the Group of 5 Brazil, People's Republic of China, India, Mexico, and South Africa. In June 2005, Justice Ministers and Interior Ministers from the G8 countries agreed to launch an international database on pedophiles. The G8 officials also agreed to pool data on terrorism, subject to restrictions by privacy and security laws in individual countries. Global energy. At the Heliagendum Summit in 2007, the G8 acknowledged a proposal from the EU for a worldwide initiative on efficient energy use. They agreed to explore, along with the International Energy Agency, the most effective means to promote energy efficiency internationally. A year later, on June 8, 2008, the G8 along with China, India, South Korea and the European Community established the International Partnership for Energy Efficiency Cooperation, at the Energy Ministerial meeting hosted by Japan holding 2008 G8 presidency, Innomori, G8 finance ministers, whilst in preparation for the 34th summit of the G8 heads of state and government in Toyako, Hokkaido, met on 13 and 14 June 2008, in Osaka, Japan. They agreed to the AEURO-OEG8 Action Plan for Climate Change to enhance the engagement of private and public financial institutions. In closing, ministers supported the launch of new climate investment funds by the World Bank, which will help existing efforts until a new framework under the UNFCCC is implemented after 2012. The UNFCCC is not on track to meeting any of his stated goals. Annual Summit. The annual G8 Leaders Summit is attended by the heads of government. The member country holding the G8 presidency is responsible for organizing and hosting the year summit. The serial annual summits can be parsed chronologically in arguably distinct ways, including as the sequence of host countries for the summits has recurred over time, series, etc. Member facts: these G8 countries represent 7 of the 7 top-ranked advanced economies with the largest GDP and with the highest national wealth last century, also known as G7, 7 of the 15 top-ranked countries with the highest net wealth per capita, 8 of 12 top-ranked leading export countries, 6 of 10 top-ranked countries with the largest gold reserves, 8 of 11 top-ranked economies, according to latest International Monetary Fund statistics. 4 countries with a nominal GDP per capita above $40,000. 5 countries with a sovereign wealth fund, administered by either a national or a state provincial government. 8 of 30 top-ranked nations with large amounts of foreign exchange reserves in their central banks. 4 out of 9 countries having nuclear weapons. 2 countries that have nuclear weapons sharing programs. 7 of the 9 largest nuclear energy producers, although Germany announced in 2011 that it will close all of its nuclear power plants by 2022. Following the 2011 Tohoku earthquake and tsunami, Japan shut down all of its nuclear reactors. However, in July 2012, Japan restarted 2 nuclear reactors at the OEI nuclear power plant. These reactors are the only ones currently in operation at this time. 8 of the 15 top donors to the UN budget for the 2013 annual fiscal year. 4 countries with HDI index for 2013 of 0.9 and higher. 2 countries with the highest credit rating from Standard & Poor's, Fitch, and Moody's at the same time. With G8 plus 5 and the G20, all G8 countries became members of the unofficial $1 trillion club by 2005. Today, 14 countries in the world are members of both the unofficial club and the G20 major economies group. All of the G8, 15 of the G20, and 12 G8 plus 5 countries are among the 20 top-ranked nations by the amount of voting power and special drawing rights in the International Monetary Fund. All members of the G8, excluding Russia, and 3 G20 nations not members of the G8, Australia, South Korea, and Argentina, have a HDI index of 0.8 or higher for 2013. Cumulative influence of member nations. Together the 8 countries making up the G8 represent about 14% of the world population, but they represent about 60% of the world wealth and 60% of the gross world product as measured by gross domestic product, all 8 nations being within the top 12 countries according to the CIA World Factbook. The majority of global military power, and almost all of the world's active nuclear weapons. In 2007, the combined G8 military spending was $850 billion. This is 72% of the world's total military expenditures. Four of the G8 members, the United Kingdom, United States, France and Russia, together account for 99% of the world's nuclear weapons. Criticism. Some criticism centers on the assertion that members of G8 do not do enough to help global problems such as third world debt, global warming and the AIDS epidemic due to strict medicine patent policy and other issues related to globalization. In Unraveling Global Apartheid, the political analyst Titus Alexander described the G7, as it then was, as the cabinet of global minority rule, with a coordinating role in world affairs. The Conservative Heritage Foundation has criticized the G8 for advocating food security without making room for economic freedom. Relevance. The G8's relevance is unclear. Critics argue that the G8 has now become unrepresentative of the world's most powerful economies. In particular, China has surpassed every economy but the United States, while Brazil has surpassed Canada and Italy. Also, according to the International Monetary Fund and the CIA World Factbook, India has already surpassed Canada, Italy, Germany, France, and Japan in terms of purchasing power parity, although remaining on the 10th position when it comes to nominal GDP. This has given rise to the idea of enlarging G8 to the G8 plus 5, which includes these other economically powerful nations. Other critics assert, however, that the concept of a country's net wealth is different from the nation's GDP. With Vladimir Putin not attending the 2012 G8 summit at Camp David, there is an argument that the summit has generally outlived its usefulness as a viable international gathering of foreign leaders. As a result of that decision, contributors of Foreign Policy magazine stated that Russia should be deleted from the G8 altogether. However, another FP contributor commented that the G8 is still relevant, despite the increasing international power and prestige of the G20 Major Economies Leaders Summit. British Prime Minister David Cameron said of the G8. Some people ask, does the G8 still matter, when we have a group of 20? My answer is, yes. The G8 is a group of like-minded countries that share a belief in free enterprise as the best route to growth. As 8 countries making up about half the world unregistered trademark's gross domestic product, the standards we set, the commitments we make, and the steps we take can help solve vital global issues, fire up economies and drive prosperity all over the world. Current leaders. Suspended. Youth 8 Summit. The Y8 Summit, or simply Y8, is the youth counterpart to the G8 Summit. The first summit to use the name Y8 took place in May 2012 in Puebla, Mexico, alongside the Youth G8 that took place in Washington, D.C. The same year. The Y8 Summit brings together young leaders from G8 nations and the European Union to facilitate discussions of international affairs, promote cross-cultural understanding, and build global friendships. The conference closely follows the formal negotiation procedures of the G8 Summit. The Y8 Summit represents the innovative voice of young adults between the age of 18 and 35. The delegates jointly come up with a consensus-based written statement in the end, the final communique copyright. This document is subsequently presented to G8 leaders in order to inspire positive change. The Y8 Summit is organized annually by a global network of youth-led organizations called the IDEA. The organizations undertake the selection processes for their respective national delegations, while the hosting country is responsible for organizing the summit. Now, several youth associations are supporting and getting involved in the project. For instance, every year, the Young European Leadership Association is recruiting and sending EU delegates. The goal of the Y8 Summit is to bring together young people from around the world to allow the voices and opinions of young generations to be heard and to encourage them to take part in global decision-making processes. See also. References. Further reading, Bain, Nicholas and Robert D. Putnam. Hanging in There, The G7 and G8 Summit in Maturity and Renewal. Aldershot, Hampshire, Ashgate Publishing. 10 ISBN 0-7546-1185-X. 13 ISBN 978-0-7546-1185-1. OCLC 43186692, Haas, P.M. Introduction. Epistemic Communities and International Policy Coordination, International Organization 46, 11 €35. Hagel, Peter I. The G8 System and the G20 Evolution, Role and Documentation. Aldershot, Hampshire, Ashgate Publishing 13 ISBN 978075464545504 13th ISBN 0754645509. OCLC 277231920, Kokutzes, Eleanor Keeping International Commitments, Compliance, Credibility, and the G7, 1988 to Euro 1995. New York, Garland Publishing 10 ISBN 0815333323/13 ISBN 9780815333326. OCLC 40460131, Reynalda, Bob and Butjan Verbeek Autonomous Policy Making by International Organizations. London, Routledge. 10 ISBN 0415164869/10 ISBN 9780415164863. 13 ISBN 978-0-203-45085-7. 10 ISBN 0-203-45085-X. OCLC 39013643, external links, official website of Russia unregistered trademark S 2014 G8 Presidency, G8 Information Center, G8 Research Group, University of Toronto, Special Report, G8, Guardian Unlimited, Profile, G8, BBC News, We are deeply concerned. Again, New Statesman, July 4, 2005, AA Euro G8 Development Concern since 1977, G8 Information Center Finance Ministers Meetings, G8, Cooking the Books 1 Euro Unregistered Trademark Tea Feed Anyone, Oxfam International, Dear G8 Leaders, don't Euro Unregistered Trademark Tea Lie About Your Aid, Oxfam International Blogs, Wait, the G8 Still Exists. Foreign Policy Magazine, Is This the Last G8 Summit Meeting? Foreign Policy Magazine, http www.unorgpubs20060106p54 htm The Group of Eight, ECOSOC and the Constitutional Paradox.